Yeah. Well, hello people. How are you all tonight? Well, I'm going to wish the club a happy birthday. As you can see, I do have some memorabilia around the place. I do have a couple of regrets. One major one is that I can't be there with you to enjoy this party. So with a lot of help from our good friend Kevin and the Busselton Senior High School, we'll do it via video link, so that's just as easy to go. So before you think, who the hell is this guy talking? Well, if you're thinking that, well then you don't know me and you haven't been around for very, very long really. So having that in mind, I will tell you who I am. My name is Harry Haamers, and my association with the club started in, say, January in 1980. When I got to Lower Light, there were two organizations operating. One of them was operated by a bloke called Vic Balfour, who was a chief instructor there, and the other association was being run by a guy called Colin Parsons, who was the other chief instructor on the other side. They were set up about where the bunkhouses are now. Vic stayed with the club, but Colin Parsons eventually decided to make a move from Lower Light, and I think that he went down to Goolwa, and he set up in the hangar down there. Vic Belfort was the only guy doing any training and dispatching at the Lower Light Club at the time. So after a little while, when I got my licensing up a little bit, I did ask Vic to train me up to be a static line dispatcher, which he was happy to do. So after a while, I did sit for the exam, and I got the exam, and that gave me my Instructor D static line. I was then able to study for Instructor B, and with the help of Vic, I did in the end, 6 months later, sit for my Instructor B exam. So then I became a static line Instructor B, which helped me a lot, so I could do training for static line, and I can also do the dispatching for static line. So that was all that was going at Lower Light at the time, just pretty well static line. There's a couple of guys I brought in tandem, and I think they were Gavin Norsworthy and Kevin Taylor. I don't know whether you know Gavin Norsworthy or not, but you must know Kevin Taylor. And these were some of the other guys that were on the drop zone. When I got there, there was those blokes. There was Kevin and Gavin Norsworthy. There was also a guy called Ratsack. Why he was called Ratsack, I never really found out. Keith Parrott was there. You must all know Keith. And a guy called Neil Davis, he was also around the place. And besides that, there weren't too many people around. There was a Phil Luff. I remember Phil Luff. He was a pretty nice fella, but I think he was associating more with the other skydiving area. In 1989, late 1989, I eventually did my accelerated freefall jump master exam with a guy called Paul Osborne. We call that the class of '89, and then I did that with a guy called Paul Maloney or Splash, a guy called Thomas, and there was myself. Well, we all passed the exams, and I became an Instructor B, accelerated freefall, and that made things a lot busier and a lot happier for the drop zone. I was able to train as in it. Greg Smith, Miff, he was also training and jump mastering. So we got quite busy on the drop zone. And the one thing that I do regret also is that one other person that does or did a whole lot for the club cannot be with you guys tonight because he's passed away. And that guy is Keith Briggs. Keith is one of the best managers that I have seen, and I don't take me much to envision Keith at Manifest doing the Manifest Tart business things, talking to the airplanes, and he was one of the better managers. He would do anything for the club, keep the money, and he was also very, very instrumental in purchasing the land that you're on. He was also a third member of the club people who eventually bought a Pilatus Porter. That's an aircraft that was being sold by the army, and there were 3 members of the club bought this plane. This plane was a great little turbine, and it took 10 jumpers to 14 grand in a very quick period of time. And you didn't have to worry about cooling on the way down because it was a turbine prop. You could just fly it straight to the ground if you wanted to. All you had to worry about is pulling it straight before they got too close to the ground. Eventually that airplane was bought out, and I think a guy called John McWilliams, and you should know him, and he took it away with him, and he used it for his own purposes in Victoria. But he did come back to Lower Light, and on the request of a fellow, where this stubby holder was the result of, and we had a return of the Pilatus Porter weekend going there, which was quite an exciting thing because that plane was a good plane for jumping. It took 10 skydivers to about 12, 14 grand in about 10 minutes. And going down, you didn't have to worry about cooling like a conventional Continental engine. You could just point it to the ground and fly it down to the deck as fast as you could, as long as you remember to pull up before you got somewhere near the ground because of the turbine thing. The club as such was not much as far as buildings go. The hangar was built eventually by all the club members. There's one guy that I remember who was very keen to build his hangar, and he went and searched long and far to find it, and this bloke was Carl Sellex, and he delivered it to the drop zone, and then it was all hands on to put the thing up, you know. First thing, the hole was being dug so that the foundation was being laid, and then it was working bees for a couple of weekends to put up the framework, to put up the walls, and to try to put the roof on. There was a couple of times where the weather didn't want to play ball, so the wind was coming in strong, the rain was coming in strong. So before we actually got this hangar up, there was a big threat that the thing got blown away. You know. But with the help of the local SES, we managed to save it all. And if you have a look at some of the I-beams that are on the hangar, if you can get at them, you can see that there is a little bend in them, and that was the bend by the northerly winds that came in. So it was quite a close call whether the hangar was going to stay where it was or not, because it was all open to the north, so that north wind just came straight in its full force, which was probably around about 35 knots, and it just bellowed like a sail in the wind. And if you have a look in the camera area in the little alleyway, some of the beams there or outside, you'll see that there is a tiny little bend, and this was done by the wind. So all in all, we're very, very lucky that that hangar is still standing, because as we're building it, the wind was just about pulling it down from under us. But the guys at the CES, they were very helpful to come to the hangar when it was blowy, and they put all these tarps up around the place. But the result of this tarping was that it was like big sails, and they billowed, and then the wind was strong enough, and you could see the beams and the I-beams bending before the actual tarpaulin started to rip. So we were in a big hurry to take these tarps all back down again before the hangar got pulled down by the strength of the wind. We all managed to do that in the end, so saved the hangar. And then after the weather all calmed down, well, we started putting the roof up and the siding up. And after a couple more weeks, the hangar got completed, and that was quite a big job. It was a good chore. And the work was done by all the members of the club, which is a really good thing. It was all organised by a guy called Keith Briggs, who's no longer there anymore. And I don't know how many of you guys would know a guy called Keith Briggs, but he would be a very, very motivating factor of the South Australia Sport Parachute Club. So unfortunately, Keith Briggs, he died in a car accident when he had an accident, and the force of the crash put him through the windscreen of his car, and on the way through on the windscreen he managed to cut a main artery in his leg, and he ended up on the road. He managed to crawl into the gutter, prop himself up against a Stobie pole, and very quietly sat there, bled to death before anybody could get to him. So Keith Briggs was a very, very good motivating factor for the South Australia Sport Parachute Club, and he was an excellent treasurer. He did a lot of good work for it. He was a little Welshman, but that we won't hold that against him. My own personal association with the club started when I said to Vic Belford that I wanted to become an instructor, which he was quite happy to do because Vic was the only instructor in the area, and he was the chief instructor. And I went from my jump masters to my instructor B fairly quickly, and then I got the opportunity to do accelerated freefall, which I also passed. And from there on I took on certain roles like area safety officer and a few other things every now and again. And also I was the organizer for the state competitions for a couple of years running. That was exciting. But we're here to talk about the club, not about me as such. And so it's the memory of the club is always a good one, but the fact of sleeping quarters were, first of all, we called it the Gorilla Pit, and if you were there at the time you could probably understand why it was called the Gorilla Pit. You know, that was in what is now the lecture room. That was then unclad and bare as, and with a few bunk beds in it, which were acquired from the hospital, and they all kinds of unsociable things probably went on in there before it became what it is now, which is a proper classroom. And then before the new bunkhouses were built, that was a good bonus and a good step forward. My association with the club was quite well, and I left the club in the end to come to Western Australia. Here it didn't take too long to get involved with the local skydiving club. There was a few people that were right into it, and the jumping was good. My experience that I had from the club in South Australia carried on here. So just thinking back to the times I had at Lower Light, and they were all good memories for me, particularly the times that we used to organise ourselves into the Grand Prix jumps, which was a fairly good thing. Initially the groups were split up to where the landings were, and there were some people landed inside the grounds, some people landed on the track, which was the start-go track, and there was another big group of people that landed at the college that was just outside of the Grand Prix area. But all in all, that was quite a good experience as such. And the thing was this, though, that the APF sold us all demo licenses, so they did fairly well out of it. We did because we got to see the Grand Prix races for free, and we got good experience jumping into various areas of the Grand Prix track. I've got a lot of memories about the Lower Light Skydiving Club, but if I was to sit here and hog them all, then it would take all night. So I think what the best thing to do for now would be for me to stop it. And I would like to wish everybody that's still there now a very happy memories for the South Australia Sport Parachute Club in the future. And I hope your memories will be as good as my memories were when I was at the South Australia Sport Parachute Club. So I'll take it easy, you guys. You enjoy your night, and I may or may not catch up to you soon. I might make it back to Adelaide, and if I do, I will definitely come and visit the club. Ciao.